Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Dress Code. The superintendent of my old school was comically rigid in his views and seemed to have his mindset stuck in the 1960s. He told us, without a hint of irony, that the only way students would respect us is if we were dressed professionally. Not even business casual was okay for him. Faculty wearing sneakers or blue jeans was a legitimate cause for termination. Under our contract, the male staff dress code demanded that we wear a long sleeve button-up shirt with a tie, dress pants with a belt, and dress shoes or boots every day. There was, however, a note in our contract stating that the dress code could be reasonably relaxed, if not possible due to a medical condition. No details were provided beyond that. Well, my wife and I moved apartments one weekend, and my feet hurt. So I made the executive decision that that was a medical condition and wore my sneakers to school on Monday. I figured I could just lay low and keep my feet hidden from any pesky administrators. And I knew that my students wouldn't care. My students, in fact, thought it was awesome. That part of my appearance was that of a real person. Wouldn't you know it? That was the day the superintendent and building administrators were coming around room by room to give the school board members a building tour. So of course I had to get up and greet them. Nobody said anything to me, but I did receive a nasty email from the assistant principal with CC to the principal and superintendent, reminding me of the expectations set forth in the teacher dress code. No note in my file or anything, just a warning. Fair enough, I suppose, but it set me off that they didn't even ask why I decided to wear sneakers and just sent me a warning with no chance to defend myself. So, cue the malicious compliance. The dress code just said dress shoes and boots. Well, are you familiar with demonia boots? I went ahead and bought the most over-the-top, bombastic pair of boots on their website. I'm talking black leather with 3-inch platforms, chains, studs, zippers and straps galore. They came about halfway up my shins, and of course I tucked my pants into them. My students thought they were amazing. A few of my coworkers took it upon themselves to give me a stern warning, and some others gave me a high five. After 4 days of wearing these boots with no incident, the principal ended up behind me in the hallway. Rather quickly, he asked, "What the heck are those?" So I told him they were boots to ensure that I am in compliance with the dress code, and kept walking. That afternoon, I received an email from him stating that I was intentionally being unprofessional, and this would be documented in my record, and further dress code offenses could lead to disciplinary action or suspension. I immediately got in touch with my union, who quickly dealt with that in my favor, since they were indeed boots. I also explained to the union that I only did this because of the nasty email I received for wearing sneakers with my sore feet. The union rep immediately smirked, told me she was unfamiliar with that rule, and told me to go ahead and wear whatever footwear I wanted, and that if anybody had a problem, I could just claim I had sore feet. I ended up wearing my sneakers every single day for the entire rest of the school year and never had another problem. I inspired a few other rebels, and by the time I left that school, there were a solid 10 of us that were just routinely wearing sneakers or other non-dress code compliant footwear in blatant disregard of the dress code every single day. The next story is called Corporate Policy. Some years ago, I was working for a large corporation. One of the responsibilities of the team I was on was to offer on-the-job training for employees and managers on a number of topics. We took our job seriously and tried to do the best work we could. Among other things, that meant changing the training topics and content on a regular basis to make sure it was up to date with industry standards and what our colleagues actually needed to know. At some point, we were approached by corporate HR. Apparently, our training was bypassing most of the central controlling and approval processes, which was creating issues for them. I could understand that. However, these processes were awful, slow, unnecessary, bureaucratic, and HR showed no interest in improving them. There was no way we could follow them without sacrificing our quality standards. I could have outright refused to follow them and created a massive conflict, but there was a better way. We set up a workshop with HR to make sure we understood the processes we needed to follow in detail. Over several exhausting hours, we mapped out every single step that needed to be done by anyone along every step of the way. Flip charts with scribbles and diagrams quickly filled up every square foot of available wall. At the end of a long and exhausting afternoon for everyone involved, I pointed out that we now had a full picture of what needed to be done, but we still needed to align on next steps. How would we get there? It was at this point that the HR manager in the room asked whether we could postpone that topic for the follow-up workshop, as everyone seemed to be very tired. Of course, we agreed. Funnily enough, that follow-up workshop never happened. Whenever the topic came up, everyone was quick to state how busy they were at the moment. And could we delay for a few more weeks? A year or two later, our training program had to end for an entirely unrelated reason, so it didn't matter anymore. The third story is called Only in the Office. Buddy worked for a company that got on the hybrid working from home train early. This took place around 2016. We live in New Jersey and his office was in New York City. His contract said that he had to be in 1 day a week, same day each week, and up to 5 days a month, so 1 additional day on top of his weekly day. If work brought him in more than that, he got paid his hourly billable rate for his commute and any extra hours. His commute was 1.5 to 2 hours each way, so that could quickly add up to hundreds of thousands of hours. Other than a couple of full-time in-office folks, his co-workers had similar contracts and had to be in 1 to 8 times a month. Some lived as far away as Boston or DC. They worked in a well-paid niche consulting field, so I guess this was worth it to everyone. Buddy's company has a client who is very old school, and their point of contact is a jerk. On a video call, the client notices that some staff do not appear to be in the office. Before blur was as common, and demands that all the work done for their contract be done in an office, and starts a rant about professionalism. Buddy's manager simply says, okay. Manager calls a meeting afterwards with Buddy's team. He knows they are upset, but asks them to prepare to come into the office daily for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Tells them to keep very careful track of receipts, costs, time, etc. and asks them to trust him. For the people who live further away, he tells them he'll set up accommodations for them and their families if necessary. Because the company treats people well, everyone goes along with it, with minor grumbling. About 5 weeks go by, everyone is coming in daily. As most people didn't come in normally, there was not much space in the office. The company liked teleworking because it allowed them to have a New York City headquarters, but not much space. Everyone keeps careful track of commuting costs, etc., time, and is getting reimbursed for their travel time and everything they are owed. This includes some folks who had contracts that covered lodging. If they had to come in more than a day or 2 in a row, then one day the manager tells them they can go back to their regular schedule. Everyone notices that the jerk client is gone, but that the client company is still their client. Later on, Buddy finds out what happened. As per the terms of the contract, the client had to pay for all of that overage. Frustrating for the employees, but Buddy said no one was too mad, knowing that it was temporary. Buddy's manager also knew that the same jerk point of contact had been a jerk. He had apparently gotten tired of being asked to sign contract modifications. Buddy said usually these were set at modifications over 1k or something, but this guy had thought these sign-offs were below him, and so set the threshold much higher, something like 100k. Due to the wording of the contract, this was 100k per change, not total. So in the 5 weeks that everyone was coming in full time, he had managed to cost his company a few $100,000. But since each individual employee was a single change, no one noticed until the next billing cycle. Jerk got called out by his own company, and they tried to contest the payment. Turns out the contract was very clearly written, and the client had to pay. On top of that, this is a pretty niche field, and so the client didn't really have many other options. if they wanted to change consultants at that point. Jerk point of contact got fired and, according to Buddy's manager, couldn't really find work in their smallish field. Buddy and his co-workers got a nice chunk of money. The last story is called Our Job to Know. A place I worked at in 2004 had 3 database admin teams. The team I had been on since I joined was tight. An on-call rotation was pretty easy. If anyone got paged for a database that you were the primary on, then you had to buy the team drinks. You rarely got paged. During the end of the company, they had massive layoffs and combined 30 admins on 3 teams into one team of 7. I made the cut. However, they refused to offline any systems, so the workload of 30 remained. My old boss did not make the cut, and my new boss was toxic. His name was Steve. Worst boss ever. He would defend anyone but someone on his team. I believe he legit thought throwing his people under every bus made him a team player. Other departments quickly figured out, blame them and he will blame his people. So they did. My first on-call rotation on this new combined team was hell. The pager went off every 10 to 15 minutes. Messages like Job 104 completed step 5, Job 110 starting step 12, Job 110 completed step 12. In case you did not know, these are not things you page out for. I have no idea what any of those jobs are, where they are kept or what to do about them if they should fail. On and on all night long. You can't ignore them, as you might miss a real message about an actual database problem. So you get 0 sleep, and with the diminished staff, they expect you there the next day. When I started ranting the next day, the folks left from that particular team said, "It's always been that way. That was nuts and we are short-staffed." So I set out to fix the problem. I looked at every message that got sent to the pager queue and added the prefixes info or warn to every message. Kept it short for the pager. Then I changed the pager daemon to route anything starting with info to email and only route warn to pagers. Worked like a champ. We went from 50 pages a night to maybe 1 per night, and often none. One day a team meeting was called and boss Steve was upset that a print job had failed and our on-call person, me, did not respond. Why would I respond to a print job failure? We, database admins, have nothing to do with that. When you get a page, you respond. Period. Why would I get a page that a print job failed? Because we always have. Didn't you get the page? Oh, that? No. I fixed it a while back. DBAs only get paged for DBA stuff now. What? You need to put that back the way it was. I said no. The people who were actually responsible should get paged, not us. We ended up in a shouting match. He was yelling he would take me to HR, and I told him that worked both ways, as he was flat out abusing us, not letting us sleep, and expecting us in at 8 AM sharp. That slowed him down a little, and then he calmly said, "Our department must know everything that happens overnight, so we can answer for it in the morning. Make sure we get the pages." The evil light bulb went off. I smiled and said, "Yes sir." Ding ding ding. Our department. We. I reworked the pager daemon so that all pages went to his pager, but left the code that only routed warn to the on-call pager in place. Now we and our department know everything that happens overnight. I slept soundly that night. The next morning I kept waiting for him to come over and either tear into me again or admit it was a horrible night, that he did not grasp how bad it was. But now let's get a better fix in place. I was disappointed. He said nothing to me at all. I double checked that everything was routed to his pager, and it was. He just would not admit he was wrong. I was impressed. I thought he was tough, but stupid, getting all those pages every night and never saying a word. A few weeks later, I was doing an upgrade outage overnight. We were getting to a critical point and needed a decision to roll back or continue and exceed the outage window. I paged him several times. No answer. We all sleep through pages from time to time, so I rolled back and emailed all concerned. But he never got back to me. That was odd. The next Monday I mentioned it to the team, and several folks said that he does not answer pages after hours anymore. So he was not tough. He just started turning his pager off before bed. Still too chicken to admit he was wrong. A few weeks later I was on call again and late Sunday night I got paged to come in immediately. The system that went down was a federally mandated system, with severe financial penalties for downtime beyond our limit. We were reaching that limit. It was a huge amount of money. All hands on deck. Even the CEO and CIO were there. Developers, sysadmin, network, security and DBA with their bosses. With one exception, we're all on laptops in the conference room. This was big. Thank God it was not a DB problem. It turned out to be network. The CIO said he appreciated us and wanted us all there until it was resolved, just in case. No problem. Sometimes that is the life we choose. At about 5 AM Monday, after a long night, the CIO says to me, "Hey, I have paged your boss like a dozen times. He is not answering." With a shrug, I very casually say, "Steve never answers pages at night." He said nothing out loud, but I saw his face cloud up. About 7:30, issues are resolved and we are watching transactions flow across to the feds. I am watching the DB to make sure the huge backlog is not gumming it up, but I am just watching as all is well. At about 7:45, Steve comes strutting in the door, fresh face with a full night's sleep. As he walks past the full conference room, he does a double take and stops. When he sees all the heavy hitters and us plebs in the room, his face falls. He knew right then he screwed up. The CIO says, loud and mean, "Where have you been?" Then the CIO and CEO take him out of the room. I have no idea what was said, but I bet it was not pretty. The CIO and CEO come back in about 10 minutes. They heartily thanked us all for the dedication, then sent us home and said don't come back until tomorrow. I came in the next day and no Steve. I never saw him again. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.